Curtis LeMay is well known for fighting with JFK during the Cuban Missile Crisis and openly demanding nuclear war with the Soviet Union. His crass, tone-deaf attitude during the Cold War earned him a reputation as a living embodiment of the military-industrial complex. LeMay foolishly believed that a nuclear war could be won. His lack of social demeanor and hawkish approach towards the Soviet Union has made him a bad guy in the eyes of the public. This villain persona, LeMay seemed to relish in. If Kennedy listened to LeMay during the Cuban Missile Crisis, I could very well be broadcasting this video from inside an irradiated bunker. Even before the Cold War, LeMay had a reputation for brutality for firebombing Japan during the closing days of World War II. As a matter of fact, his bombing raids inflicted more casualties than the dropping of the 2 atomic bombs. LeMay was a man of many things, but a coward wasn't one of them. During the height of the Second World War, LeMay insisted on being the lead pilot during daring bombing missions against the Germans. He was always the first target against anti-air gunners and enemy pilots alike. This gained him the respect of the men under his command, and he was revered by his troops. By insisting on going on every raid with his men, LeMay was in more combat than most soldiers see in their entire careers. To put this in perspective, Ulysses S. Grant and Robert E. Lee fought around 20 battles throughout their entire lives. LeMay was in battle every day for 3 years. To begin, Curtis Emerson LeMay was born on November 15, 1906 to a working-class family in Columbus, Ohio. LeMay's father was an iron worker and handyman who worked odd jobs, but LeMay's dad couldn't hold down a job for more than a couple months. According to LeMay's father was a dreamer with his head in the clouds. LeMay's mother did her best, but Curtis was the one with the job. He went to school in the day and worked throughout the night. But ever since a young age, he dreamed of flying, ever since a crop duster flew over his house on his 5th birthday. Despite the odds being against LeMay, he was hell-bent on becoming a pilot. During college, LeMay earned a degree in engineering from Ohio State while working full-time. Upon graduation, he joined the National Guard and was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the U.S. Army Air Corps in October 1929. LeMay managed to be one of the few people to survive pilot training with a pass rate of 25%. The cadets at the flight school were called dodos, with recruits being frequently killed in training accidents. LeMay was one of the few lucky ones to become a pilot. At first, he became a fighter pilot flying World War I aircraft, but he quickly changed to bombers during the 1930s as he learned of their destructive power. During the Great Depression, LeMay supervised FDR's employment programs and delivered airmail as a government employee during FDR's strike negotiations with Pan Am. Due to the government not really seeing a need for fighter pilots, with the advent of no war going on, he was forced to do odd flying jobs for the government. Eventually, with the militarization of Germany and Japan, the Army Air Corps was taken more seriously. During the late 1930s, LeMay was sent to Hawaii, where he specialized in air navigation. During a training exercise on a B-17 Flying Fortress, he managed to locate the battleship Utah, despite having the wrong coordinates. During this time, he also flew the experimental XB-17 heavy bomber. In 1938, he navigated 3 B-17s 700 miles over the Atlantic Ocean to intercept the Italian ocean liner Rex to demonstrate air power in the battleship carrier debate in a vain attempt to get more money from Congress to the Army Air Corps. When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in 1941, LeMay was just a mere pilot, but was quickly made commander of the 305th Bomber Group and sent to England in October 1942 as a part of the 8th Air Force. From October to May 1943, LeMay led his men into battle, flying personally the lead B-17, making him the target for anti-air gunners and enemy fighters alike. During these opening bombing raids, LeMay helped develop the combat box flying formation, where bombers would fly in close formation, thus protecting each other from enemy attacks. LeMay also developed the doctrine of strategic destruction. He shared the same opinion of William Tecumseh Sherman and Ulysses S. Grant that in order to win, he needed to spend human lives and attack the enemy's war-making ability. This made LeMay one of the key supporters of daytime bombings and destroying Germany's industrial ability. LeMay led his men all throughout 1942 with one of the more famous raids known as the Schleifer-Regensburg mission, where a joint coalition of British and American pilots crippled Germany's aircraft production with over 375 bombers and 16 bomber groups. What made this mission especially costly was that the bombers had to move out of range of fighter cover to hit the factories. The mission succeeded with heavy casualties. Over 60 bombers were lost in the raid, and the 8th Air Force was put out of commission. In 1944, the P-51 Mustang took to the skies, which finally gave LeMay the fighter cover he needed to cripple the German economy. In August, LeMay was transferred to China, where he came in charge of all strategic air operations against the Japanese home islands. While in the Pacific theater, LeMay quickly realized that the lessons he learned from Europe wouldn't apply in Asia. Japan's weather was almost completely different to that of Germany. Heavy clouds and a strong jet stream over the island protected Japan from targeted bombings. To put it simply, dropping bombs from below 20,000 feet in broad daylight wasn't going to cut it. With mission success rates at 5%, LeMay and several other officers concluded that the only way to take down the home home islands was through low-altitude nighttime firebombings. You see, the Achilles heel for Japan was that the majority of their buildings were made out of wood and paper. Firebombing was the only way to finish the Japanese once and for all. LeMay oversaw the bombing of over 67 Japanese cities, including the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Most importantly, LeMay oversaw the firebombing of Tokyo, which ended up being one of the most destructive raids of the war. Overall, the LeMay raids proved to be far more destructive in comparison to the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, with LeMay's bombings causing around 500,000 casualties. After World War II, LeMay headed operations during the Berlin airlift of 1948 against the Soviet Union. After the airlift, he returned to take charge of the Strategic Air Command. In 1951, LeMay was promoted to the rank of 4-star general, thus becoming the youngest 4-star general since Ulysses S. Grant at the age of 44. During 1951, LeMay suddenly became an avid supporter of starting World War III. In 1954, during a reconnaissance mission over the Soviet Union, Curtis LeMay remarked to pilot Hal Austin, whose plane had been damaged by a MiG-17, "Well, maybe if we do this overflight right, we can get World War III started." Initially, Hal Austin assumed LeMay was joking. Years later, after LeMay's retirement, Austin brought up the subject again. LeMay remembered the mission vividly and reiterated, "Well, we would have been a hell of a lot better off if we got World War III started in those days." LeMay's hawkish approach to the Cold War continued as he was promoted to Chief of Staff of the U.S. Air Force in 1961. LeMay clashed with Defense Secretary Robert McNamara and Chief of Staff General Maxwell Taylor on budgeting and developing nuclear strategies. During the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, LeMay fought with JFK and McNamara on bombing nuclear test sites in Cuba. He opposed Kennedy's blockade of the island, told Kennedy, upon ignoring him, that he was in a hell of a pickle, which is a crazy thing to say to a president. After the blockade and peace was made between the two powers, LeMay demanded that Cuba be invaded anyway, even after the missiles were withdrawn. Curtis LeMay's reluctance towards tactical aircraft and training had consequences during the Vietnam War, where existing Air Force fighters faced challenges in sustaining tactical bombing due to North Vietnamese's anti-aircraft defenses. LeMay, known for his preference for strategic bombing, expressed his belief that flying fighters is fun, flying bombers is important. However, the Air Force's use of large missile-armed jet fighters proved valuable to both anti-aircraft measures and maneuverable Soviet fighters. LeMay advocated for a sustained strategic bombing campaign targeting North Vietnamese cities, harbors, and other strategic sites. His advice was disregarded in favor for an incremental policy that focused on limited interdiction bombing. President Lyndon B. Johnson imposed bombing limitations for geopolitical reasons, fearing direct involvement of the Soviets and Chinese in the war. In his 1965 autobiography, LeMay suggested a strong response to North Vietnam, stating that they should draw in their horns and stop their aggression, or we're going to bomb them back into the Stone Age. He later clarified in the Washington Post interview that he never said that they should bomb, but rather emphasized that they had the capacity to do so to save lives. Yeah, sure. While some historians believe that LeMay's theories were eventually validated by Operation Linebacker in 1972, leading to negotiations and the Paris Peace Agreement, it's crucial to consider differences in military objectives and geopolitical realities between 1968 and 1972. These differences include Nixon's strategic use of the Sino-Soviet split and the shift in communist opposition from insurgency to conventional offensive, impacting industrial output and logistics. In essence, Johnson and Nixon were engaged in different phases of the conflict. In 1965, LeMay was forced into retirement due to his hostility towards LBJ and McNamara. In short, LeMay made too many political enemies. After retiring, LeMay moved to California, where he was asked repeatedly to run for office. In 1968, LeMay ran as VP to a former pro-segregationist Alabama governor, George Wallace, in the newly created American Independent Party. During the campaign, he was noted for being politically tone-deaf by saying that Americans have a phobia for nuclear weapons. I think everyone has a phobia for nuclear weapons. He was also criticized for his bomb them back to the Stone Age comment, but LeMay didn't really care. He seemed to revel in being the bad guy. Despite running a terrible campaign with Wallace, they won 13% of the vote, which is more than average. After running for VP, LeMay retired and lived out the rest of his life in peace, dying of a heart attack in 1990 at the age of 82.